Hello everyone, good day according to you and welcome back to Learning is the Key. Hope you guys are doing well. Please, if you are seeing my channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and kindly hit on the notification button. Please don't forget to follow my page. As you do that, God bless you. Yes guys, hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday. So tomorrow is another day. Seriously guys, I decided to bring you this updates that is talking about the election and how Nigerians need to go about it in 2023, and the reason why it is important for Nigerians to go out and make their choice. Because without you not making your choice, you are not helping your own children. There are a lot of videos that is showing how Nigerians people, how they are suffering all over the world. Nigeria is one of the most popular, country in the world. It's really popular. Anywhere you go, everybody know about Nigeria. But what is the popularity for? Is it for the good things that Nigerian people are doing or for the bad things? In Europe, a lot of people know Nigerians to be a very bad person, like bad people, bad influence, and why some other people also say they are all different. They are not all the same, And also in the Asian country, you also hear where Nigerians have really laid bad foundation for the young ones. So for that simple reason, I think the reason why this has become something that is normal, because it's not a normal thing, is because a lot of Nigerians do not have the chance to live their good life, you understand? So when they don't have good life, they can't really transmit it on their children or their born children. So when a child is growing up, he's seeing himself in a hard country, in a very hard country like Nigeria, it becomes really like automatically Italiano si dice costretta, like you are forced to adapt to the system, But if a country is good, you see the way the people will be behaving differently, you understand? So this video here will tell you exactly how they are preparing for the election and how Nigerians need to behave themselves and why you shouldn't do the wrong thing. It is really important. So guys, now, I know they like that they talk too much on my video, so because you need to hear the whole thing you want to hear, you need to hear it from the people, the way they say it, and they know it better than the both of us. God bless you. See you in my next update, and don't forget to share this video. Ciao.
With next year's general election now a little more than 3 months away, there are concerns in several quarters that a combination of factors may develop into formidable threats to the achievement of a safe, free, fair and transparent outcome. This week in Abuja, the nation's capital, stakeholders from across the political, security and civil society spectrums deliberated extensively on possible ways of effectively managing these emerging challenges. To get a better understanding of the subject matter, we have been joined here by Chike Chude, a public affairs analyst, human rights activist, and a member of Reclaim Niger, an affiliate of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room. Good morning, Achike. Good to have you with us.
It's always good to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I know that you are reclaiming Niger, but then let's try and reclaim INEC.
Absolutely. Ultimately, you know, we have a direction we all want to go.
Absolutely.
We want a country, a beautiful country.
That's it.
That would that has been able to harness all the great potentials that nature has endowed the country with, not just the mineral and natural resources, but also the human resources. A formidable, element of a national growth and progress.
Great. I'm sure you follow the National Stakeholders Forum that INEC had, this week in Abuja.
Yeah.
And of course, it was to focus on the processes, the procedures, everything that will ensure that February and March next year, go smoothly as planned. What are your thoughts? What do you take out of that initiative and the submissions made at the forum?
Yeah, actually, we were there, as the members of the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room.
All right.
It's the engagement is just a continuation of all the other engagements we have been having. In fact, taking it beyond that, all the engagements we have been having since 1999 to date, to ensure that, again, that at least to ensure that the process of governance meets with a certain, acceptable indices and criteria. And we also believe that in doing that, once you get to a level where you begin to have a seamless transition of government and where you begin to have an enlightened citizenry, where you have all stakeholders playing their part, then, it can only bode well for the good of this country. So it was on the back of this that the stakeholders at Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room engaged the key actors in this process, not just civil society component, not just the civil society component alone, but we also had the INEC chairman, present with some of the national commissioners to show the magnitude or the seriousness of the event itself. Then we had the representative of the Inspector General of Police. I'm sure that for the Nigerian Police Games, that is taking place, I think, somewhere in the south in Cross River State. The Inspector General of Police, who is supposed to be the chief host of the game, the chief organizer of the game, would have been at that event, but he sent a representative, and then we also had a representative of IPAC, the Intra-Party Advisory Council. So you have a representative of key stakeholders, the political parties represented, by IPAC, though they complain that the big parties usually don't attend their meetings. Then we had the lead agency for the overall security of the electoral process, that is the police, and then the man in the eye of the organization in the eye of the storm, and beyond that, the man in the eye of the storm, who seems to have the hottest job in the country right now, the chairman of INEC. They were also there, and then, of course, so many civil society organizations from across the country. So that showed the seriousness of the event itself. And then, of course, the event, I think, started off with this general feeling of something that has gone fairly well. I mean, in terms of the electoral atmosphere in the country, in terms of what we think has been achieved from 1999 till date. Nobody is shouting hooray yet, but we just had this feeling going into that meeting that some progress had been made. If you remember where we're coming from. Yeah. If you remember the spate of, even beyond that, looking at security, the spate of assassinations that characterized elections from 2023, 2027, where, political rivals were, suspected to be taking, their opponents out. And then to a modification that when some of them realized that instead of taking our opponents out and having their consciences, their blood on our consciences, we might as well, do it through by the way of rigging. And so rigging became something that was also entrenched within the system. And then all the various attempts to cleanse the electoral system and to make the process much more accountable and making it more difficult for the political class to do what they have always done, that is to manipulate the will of the people. So there's been, we had that feeling that some progress had been made.
Now, Chike, as we know, there are at least 4 broad areas that Nigerians are looking for assurances around when it comes to the Commission's progress. Talking security, campaign finance, technology, permanent voters' cards, and of course, whether the votes will count when it comes to the polls next year. In light of what you've seen at the event, do you think that these needs will be met?
Yeah, well, it's a worry. We had a lot of worry. In fact, let me just say that the INEC chairman kicked off. Of course, he also talked about the challenges that resulted from, the new challenges that resulted from, even the electoral law that has been passed. The reality with policies is that once policies are made and they have to be implemented, you also have periods to review these policies and to see how far you have gone. And then in the process, you realize that perhaps there are a few places that we didn't thought that we need to review. That is why they are subject to review from time to time. So obviously, there are a few things that people will have to look at. But he was essentially worried about 2 major ingredients. Going into this election, he talked about the issue of security. And of course, we are all aware of what is going on in the country. In fact, the INEC report is that in the past few months that we've had over 50 incidences of security breaches with regards to this or closely related to the election itself. And then I think the police also talked about 30 different ones. The combination, of course, were obviously the burning down, the invasion and the burning down of the INEC offices in Osun State and Ogun State, which is a new one, because this is something that has characterized the militancy or the violence in the southeast. It has always been, INEC offices have been targets of some of the people involved in this for quite some time, not in the southwest.
Yes.
So what we saw happen in the southwest was a spread, and that also told us that these security breaches with regards to direct attack on INEC facilities are spreading all over the country. So it was a matter of concern for him. And for him, he said, that everybody needed to, to work together towards ensuring and, that will bring down the spate of violence in the country. Because we know that by 2015, before the elections, about 800 Nigerians had died, as a result of election-related violence. So we need to do everything to bring it down. And of course, it's something all of us, agreed on. And then the issue of campaign financing came up, which you just talked about too. The fact that, that we see these tremendous, expenses of, obscene expenses, by the political parties, by candidates that we know that are clearly in violation of the electoral law. And so he said he was worried about that, and that, hopefully that INEC would partner with those who are experts at tracing campaign funding, to ensure that administrative resources, when they are used judiciously and in line with the guidelines, on campaign financing. So it was also a thing of worry, to him. And then, of course, there were other aspects that he also talked about. The issue of, I think the man for IPAC also had to weigh in, because he accused, party agents themselves of not wanting to comply with the directive of INEC. INEC wants to provide special identification, cards for some of the party agents, but obviously the politicians are kicking, against that, because there is sometimes in the process of even conducting an election, you see some of them, exchange cards and tags, and then exchange places, which again it's not telling, about the state of the political actor, especially with regards to the politicians in the country. So he was also worried about that. Then disability, also people with disability, all of these issues, came up. And then I think they were adequately, I wouldn't say they were completely 100% adequately addressed, but there were attempts to address some of these issues.
In your own situation room, when you look at, some of the concerns that, are cropping up, particularly the aspect of burning down of INEC's offices in the southwest, Osun State, Ogun State. What does your drilling reveal? Is it to stop the election, or to show that certain elements are not happy with the conduct of INEC? What really informs it?
Yeah, well, we look at so many scenarios, different scenarios, and that's why some of us are not exactly happy with the security forces, because the people that do this, and they're not spirits, they are known. And so if they had proper investigation was allowed to get underway, they would get not only the people that are behind it, that were physically involved in the destruction of some of these INEC offices, but most importantly, are the people that are behind it, those who sent them on these errands. And a lot of people tend to look beyond that. They are more dangerous. The people who send people to do this kind of nefarious, acts are much more dangerous than the people they send. Because even if you apprehend the people that were sent to do this, they will also send a different set of people.
That's right.
And so you need to be able to apprehend them. And obviously, the motivation is political. And so, therefore, the people that are behind it are political actors. And so you need to be able to do something about that. Now, for whatever reason, why do they want to do this? Anybody that would, engage in this kind of conduct is obviously afraid of something, and he's doing it out of fear. He's doing it, because they believe that they no longer have the capacity to control what is going to happen and what is happening. If you look at the rising interest, among Nigerians, especially the younger generation. And, somebody had said, I think it was a politician, and I think this is something politicians generally agree, that politicians are more comfortable when the people are not enlightened enough, when the people themselves do not play positive roles in the electoral process. They prefer, because now they can handle the situation. Whether it's about sending thugs, to the polling units to cause, problems, to other issues, cutting away ballot boxes and the rest, they are comfortable with that. Because when you have people, at polling booths, where you have polling units that are heavily mobilized in terms of the voters, it becomes very difficult to get into that place and then to try to change the narrative there. So there is that fear that is pushing them to do some of these things that they are doing. And part of it is to send a message to people who maybe for the first time want to actually exercise their franchise, and to others who have been doing it, that this time around there's a price to pay for turning out, for daring to turn out during an election to cast your vote for whatever person you want to vote for. So I think that is so. I think it's also a campaign of fear. But thank God that in a way INEC tried to call their bluff, because immediately we were told that about 65,000 PVCs have been destroyed.
Yeah.
INEC said they are going to replace that also showed them that ultimately we have lost nothing apart from the physical infrastructure or physical damage that our offices have suffered.
All right. I mean, if we look at vote buying as an issue, which is a burning issue, and there are almost expectations around it, of course, INEC has vowed to say, look, we're going to roll out measures to tackle it. Do you believe that these measures are enough to in fact tackle it, or are they ways to circumvent it still? And of course, you spoke about campaign finance, which INEC also did say we're going to find ways to anybody who violates these laws in terms of going beyond set expenditure will be called to order. Could you speak to some of these measures that are actually being proposed and how effective they could be?
Yeah, vote buying remains a recurring decimal. It remains a matter of concern. Of course, we know why it is happening. Because over time, politicians have used poverty as a weapon, against the people. But let me just say this, even before all of these discussions, why do we deploy, when we have off-cycle elections, why do we deploy 25,000, 35,000, security personnel to a particular state for elections? Why do we do that? Why do we spend all of these humongous amounts of money that we spend for elections? Why do we do that? It is essentially, to curtail the activities, the unpatriotic activities of the major primary, beneficiaries or losers of the electoral process, that is the politicians. And so when you say that, when we say, for instance, that we have made some progress in the political, in the democratization process from 1999 to date, we have not made any single process with regards to the mentality of the Nigerian political class. They are the same selfish, unpatriotic, not nationalistic, self-centered, divisive, every negative you can use to describe some of these people, that is exactly the way they are. So we are sending 35,000, military or security personnel to Ekiti State, Osun State, Anambra State, not because we can afford it, with all the myriads of socioeconomic problems that we have, but because of the activities of the politicians who have refused to learn, who have not forgotten anything and have not remembered anything, if you put it that way. So that has been part of it. So they are the weakest link in our democratization process. Now you talk about the issue of vote buying. And I think it was also something that some of us are not exactly happy, about. Because look, so they say talk is cheap. And INEC has said so much with regards to vote buying. Yes, they are not happy, they are not doing, but they are in a position to do something about it. The security forces are in a position to do something about it. And I think the convener of the Nigeria Society Situation Room, NOB, made that very, very clear, that we are not happy with the way the authorities have gone with some of the people who have committed offenses during the electoral process. And I mean, we've had a lot of these people over the years, and each time an election cycle ends, we take the security, INEC and the security forces to task in specific areas where people were caught, committing electoral offenses. What has been done in those, instances, and in most cases, it's nothing. You're just sending you back and forth. So we have not been able to, and perhaps, it is said that when a crime goes unpunished, the heart of the people is filled with rebellion. And so we have not had punishment, adequate punishment meted out to the people agents who are buying, because these things are done, like the convener said, these things are done in the open, sometimes with the help of the security agencies. Either they are looking away or they are actively participating in committing some of these electoral offenses.
But that's a very valid point. But have there been any conversations around imposing these punitive measures? Because that's the cause of the problem if we look at it more granularly.
Yeah, well, that is exactly what we're saying, that we are not impressed with what they have done so far in terms of punishing them. Though, in a way, the INEC chairman tried to provide a way out of it. He said it would appear that INEC, from the body language, what I discerned, personally, it would appear that they want to be, they want to be, how do I put it? They don't want to get involved in such things. And because he talked about the bill that is on the floor of the National Assembly, setting up an electoral offences, commission tribunal, commission to deal with people who commit electoral offences.
That's right.
So obviously, they don't want to get involved in it, and perhaps that is why we have not seen much traction in that area. He is hoping that this commission can come up in place so that INEC, nobody is going to go to them to begin to tell them about electoral offences and why they have not done anything about it. He wants to be rid of that responsibility.
Let me give a practical addendum to Abi's question as to vote buying. February, March next year, that will be on the heels, it will be coming on the heels of the redesigning of the Naira.
Yeah.
Do you think that the new look Naira will have any positive effect on the possibility of, vote buying? In other words, will it reduce bullion van politics?
Will the new Naira be in circulation by then?
Yes, it will be.
It will be.
Fully from January 31st.
Will the politicians be motivated by the same parochial interests? The win at all costs as a syndrome? They will be. Were you going to have an electorate that is not as politically conscious as they should be, enough to be able to discern what the politicians are trying to do to them with the monies that they offer them? You're going to have those, this electorate, they are going to be there. Are they going to also look at the virtues of collecting some of this money against the vices of not collecting it, because they can take care of their immediate needs with those money? That is going to happen. So, because it's a social, phenomenon that we are undergoing in this country, But whether perhaps if it could affect, maybe it will affect in the sense that perhaps by the time this election is taking place, the volume of money
that will be in circulation.
That will be in circulation. They might not have achieved, that in terms of what the quantity of money.
Stockpiling.
Yeah, stockpiling. So I think that is, that might come up. They might not exactly have enough. And if they don't have enough, they are going to be hindered in the process of distribution of these resources. But do not take anything for granted. The Nigerian politician is very crafty in every single way you can think of. All he thinks about is, look, we had this mantra of it's a do or die affair. It has never stopped. It continues to be the primary motivation of the Nigerian politician. But for us, and not just civil society, some of us, you people also are very, very critical, the media, to continue to highlight this, to continue to make the people aware, and to continue to come up with measures that will make it very difficult for the politicians to do what they have always done, to frustrate them in the process. And of course, you can hear the conversation again. We talked about one of the things the INEC chairman talked about, which it would appear the chairman of one of the parties, I think the APC, also talked about doubting the ability of technology to help the electoral process. If there's any measure of confidence in the electoral process today, if you are beginning to see renewed confidence and hope in the ability of INEC to organize, a better election, it is as a result of the use of technology, which some of us have been clamoring for quite some time. Yeah, there are no two ways about it. You're talking about beavers, yes, we have always, and it's not as if we collaborate with INEC because they are friends. They are not our friends. They are just people that with responsibilities that they must, responsibility that they have to fulfill. And when they fail in fulfilling those responsibilities, we must call them out, and we do call them out. And that was why by 2019, after the whole election had been done and dusted, we said no, that there were certain thresholds that this election was not able, to meet up with. Therefore, the conduct of that election was not exact. That was the position of Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room, that we are not impressed with the conduct of the election in 2019. And so we hope, and that these thresholds are also still there, and we hope that they will be able to, at least ensure that they cross, some of the hurdles that are confronting them even till today.
But I'm also hearing you say, you made a statement earlier where you said our politicians can be quite crafty. That is a bit of a detonating statement, because what I'm hearing you say is that this could be out of our hands.
No.
In spite of every measure that is taken to tackle it.
Well, I think I like, the bender, and I think it's a trick question.
It's not a trick question.
Observation. Look, we have to be one step ahead of them. I think that's just what I was trying to say. Yeah. And with the beavers, we're several steps ahead of them. But you hear what the APC chairman was saying, and you hear talks about the possibility of elections not holding in about 40% of the territory of our country, or 60% of territory of our country, because of insecurity. And so when they come up with that, we have to come up with a counter argument that we've been having security related issues in this country for the past 12 years. We have always held elections even in the worst security prone places like Borno State, the heartland of the Boko Haram insurgency, right, and other parts of this country. We have always managed to hold elections, and people have always come out to vote. Bayelsa State and some other places, Anambra State, we were there with all the threats and all that. So nobody should come up with stories about why elections cannot hold in those places. But we're just trying to hold them, accountable, because if you are not careful, what they do is that they fly this kite and hope that, the Nigerian people over time will begin to accept it. And then once they see that, look, Nigerians are becoming more accepting of that position, then the next thing is to put pressure on the, INEC, all kinds of pressure on them to ensure that we will not use all of those things that might be inimical to satiating their political ambitions. But the INEC chairman has told us that he will not disappoint us. In fact, he made it very, very clear. Okay. He said, I will not disappoint you. We are going to use technology. We are going to run this election with beavers. And the use of incident form is a thing of the past.
All right, just before we let you go, just in a few seconds, what would be your thoughts if INEC, goes on to refuse to accede to the rulings of the court as to continuous registration of new voters? Do you think that some people will feel disenfranchised?
Well, I think the horse has escaped from the barn, already, because, and don't also forget that there were conflicting interpretation of the court. Yes. While some say that this is exactly what the court had indicated, some others were saying no, that was not it. So we don't know exactly what the genuine ruling is. But even if it is true, the reality is 90 days before the election. How many days do we have before the election? You're talking essentially about 90 days. 90 days. So on what basis would it be? And, so I think that ruling, because if it is, the ruling that actually came out of the courts, then I think one thing that will be clear is that it will not be in use for now. It is going to be used for subsequent elections. Because that ruling must stand unless it is set aside by a higher court.
All right, then, a lot to look forward to, and we hope, of course, with bated breath, that INEC lives up to all of these expectations. We want to thank you so much, Mr. Chikechori, for being here with us today.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Always a pleasure having you as well.